Okay, hi. So today we're going to talk about security of blockchain and smart contracts. So many of us have invested in crypto assets, especially in Singapore, and so some of us have seen the prices of these cryptocurrencies go up over the past decade, and it can be a 1,000 or 2,000 times return in some cases. So to some, it may be very attractive investments, but there are blockchains and cryptocurrencies. They are based on technologies which have vulnerabilities. So I just wanted to introduce, some of the potential pitfalls of blockchain smart cryptocurrency investment if you're not careful or if you don't really understand how they work. So what are the features of a public blockchain? So firstly, they are decentralized. They're made up of nodes. So blockchain networks are made up of nodes, which are simply computers, which are connected to the blockchain network. And so the data storage is decentralized. So which means that there is a ledger, a public ledger of transactions which have occurred on this blockchain network, on this blockchain. And these transactions, known as blocks, they are stored in a decentralized manner, which means that any computer which is connected to the blockchain network can potentially, have a full copy of the entire blockchain from the first transaction ever conducted in the blockchain up to the most recent one. So transactions in a blockchain network are verified through consensus in a process called mining. So what happens in cryptocurrencies such as Bitcoin is that you have many miners who try to figure out what the hash of the next block of transactions is. And once the hash is found, then it is verified by ascertaining that most computers on the network agree that it is indeed the next block that is found. And through this consensus, you can ensure that some form of security in the network, and that it will be difficult for a bad actor to put in a fake transaction of some sort which can enrich himself. And it also results in some form of finality of transactions. They call it probabilistic finality because there's still transactions on blockchain are never, especially recent ones, they're not set in stone. So you might have, let's say, this chain over here that is a smaller chain, and so you might have a block that is on this chain, but then the wider network has discovered a longer chain, and so this chain that this orphan chain that you're on, these orphan blocks, you may think that we have transactions here, they're good, we're good to go, but then you find that there's a longer block that has come around, and this thing just goes up in a puff of smoke because this is the one that is agreed upon through consensus. So why would you care about blockchain security? So of course, the first and foremost is the security of your crypto investments. So if you've made any crypto investments and tied up a significant amount of your money in it, then you really ought to care about blockchain security because people have literally lost millions of dollars overnight, or in a matter of seconds because of they fell for some scam, or they or some attacker exploited a vulnerability to trick them into making a transaction that they didn't intend to make, or simply that the attacker attacked a vulnerability in the blockchain that took away their assets without them even knowing or doing anything. And of course, even financial institutions such as banks are increasing their exposure to blockchain, and they're investing in those crypto assets. So the first risk of course, when you go into blockchain is the risk of crypto exchanges. So people buy and sell cryptocurrencies using both cryptocurrencies and fiat money at cryptocurrency exchanges. So of course that would give rise to a risk where a cryptocurrency exchange collapses. So of course there is a huge amount of client crypto assets that are stored in exchange. And of course cash as well is stored in exchange. And if you keep your assets within the exchange, then you may find that when the exchange collapses, you lose your investment. So there have been many notable cryptocurrency exchanges that have collapsed. Mt. Gox collapsed in, I think, 2013, 2014, and investors lost $450 million. Coincheck more recently, I think 2018, $400 million. So you have many exchanges in the cryptocurrency market, many small ones, and over 70 exchanges have collapsed in 2020 alone. So the reason for cryptocurrency exchange collapsing are plenty. So well, a common one is that the owner of the exchange just runs away with all the money and basically leaves you in the red. So to mitigate that risk, of course, you really want to go for the larger, more reputable exchanges. Other times, it can be that the exchange is attacked by a thief who steals the crypto assets away from the exchange, or whatever. So basically, if a crypto exchange goes into liquidation, then no matter then your assets stored there, no matter whether it's cryptocurrency or cash, they will not be safe. So you'll probably have to go through this liquidation process, like as in the collapse of any other company, to maybe get a few cents on the dollar back on your assets, which is not very cool. And so for cryptocurrency exchanges, what else is of value other than the cash and cryptocurrency stored there? So if it really goes into liquidation, then it is possible that that people who stored their money, they get nothing back. So the advice is, do not store any sizable amount of cryptocurrencies in exchanges. You want to store them physically in a wallet that you control, or ideally in cold storage, where you take your wallet off the network, you print it out on a piece of paper, put it in your safe. So of course that turns your cryptocurrency wallet into more of a traditional security, where the bearer of that paper, owns the assets. So keep that piece of paper safe if you do want to go with that option. But of course, you can always key the details of that wallet back in, and you can make transactions from there on. So there is a great controversy going on in terms of the pricing of cryptocurrencies, and that there is this other cryptocurrency called Tether that some people claim are manipulating the market prices of cryptocurrency in a fiat currency such as USD. So on some exchanges, the prices of cryptocurrencies are quoted in a fiat currency, such as the US dollar. But the transactions are actually conducted using this other cryptocurrency called Tether USD, which is a cryptocurrency that is theoretically pegged to the USD. So one Tether would equals to one USD. So this Tether is issued by a company that claims to have as much US dollars in reserve as they have issued Tether tokens. So they say, oh, we have issued 2 billion or 3 billion Tether tokens. And therefore, we have 2 billion or 3 billion US dollars in reserve in our banks that will back the value of whatever Tether we have issued. But the problem is that the company that issues Tether has never produced any balance confirmation from a bank that shows this reserve actually exists. So it is quite possible, and people are talking about the possibility that Tether is created out of thin air. So the problem with this is that, on cryptocurrency exchanges, on many of them, Tether USD is treated as equivalent to USD. And so, of course, if Tether is actually being created out of thin air, then it is possible that the issuer of this Tether is actually inflating the value of the cryptocurrencies in US dollars by creating Tether out of thin air to purchase these crypto assets, and so the crypto assets would have inflated value in USD terms, for instance. So basically the essence of Tether is that let's say we have this guy called Bob, and this Bob prints his Bob currency. So one Bob currency equals to one US dollar, and he claims that there is one US dollar in his bank account for every Bob currency he prints. So that is potentially problematic claim. And let's say this Bob goes onto a commodity exchange to buy sugar, and he says, "Oh, my currency is backed by USD," and it somehow is accepted by the market participants. He uses Bob currency to buy sugar and bids up the price of sugar to such that ordinary people can't even afford a cake anymore because sugar is so expensive. But then it could well turn out that Bob currency is fraudulent. He doesn't actually have the US dollars in reserve to back up the currency, and from there on, if the fraud is revealed, the price of sugar may then collapse because of that. So I hope that's a useful analogy. So let's go on to the consensus. So if you rely on consensus to validate transactions on a blockchain, then a very trivial attack could be that the attacker attacks the consensus mechanism. So how you would do that is you connect more nodes to the blockchain network than anyone else combined. So let's say there are 1 million node computers connected to the blockchain network, that is nodes. So 1 million nodes right now, and perhaps you attach, you somehow obtain 1.5 million computers. You you attach them to the blockchain network, and now every time, so now you control more than half of the blockchain network, and you can just say, oh, we have consensus that I, the attacker, Alice, has more blockchain, has more cryptocurrency tokens than I actually have. So you can create some sort of false consensus that allows you to write bad blocks into the ledger, and you can enrich yourself by creating this false consensus. Oh yeah, and everyone agrees because I have more than half of the votes in this blockchain network. So a 51% attack just artificially inflates the number of votes a person has in order to enrich that guy. And this is possible because it is cheap. I mean, it is possible to create as many votes or as many nodes as you want on the network by simply attaching more computers to it. So fortunately, because of the very large number of nodes in blockchain networks nowadays, it is infeasible for people to simply to have more nodes on the network than anyone else combined, because say there are 100 million nodes on, say, the Bitcoin. If there are 100 million nodes on the Bitcoin network, it will be hard for anyone to go for, say, 101 million computers to attach to this network and do something funny, because perhaps a rapid increase in the number of nodes would be very noticeable to participants on the network, and yeah, it can be difficult to obtain even that number of machines, even virtual machines, to do this. So but in any case, to try to mitigate the 51% attack, some newer cryptocurrencies, some newer blockchains have adopted new consensus mechanisms such as proof of stake and raft to validate transactions instead of say proof of work. So a proof of stake is a means of consensus where on a blockchain, different people, different nodes will have different balances. I may have 1 million Bitcoins and you may have 10 million Bitcoins, for instance. Sorry. Okay. So let's say or I may have 10 million tokens and you may have 100 million tokens. So proof of stake basically capitalizes on this by saying that if you have a higher stake, if you have more tokens on this blockchain, there is a less of an incentive for you to do monkey business and mess up the transactions and be a malicious actor, because you have more to lose from this. So basically, proof of stake means that every block that is mined, every block of transactions that are validated, we have a leader, and this leader, the probability that you're selected for a particular block is higher if you have a greater stake. Like, let's say you have more tokens in the blockchain. So if you have a greater stake, you have a higher probability of being chosen as the leader. And the leader will say, okay, this is definitively the transactions that have occurred and nothing wrong is going on. Yeah. And so basically the leader will say this and the rest of the nodes will follow. So there is no question of having more nodes to try to create a false sort of consensus. So So of course, if you wanted to attack, then in order to increase your probability of being selected as the leader, you have to have a higher stake yourself. And when you have a higher stake, why would you want to attack the blockchain in which you have higher stake? So in any case, the many mechanisms in proof of stake will allow for the leader to lose their entire stake if they do anything funny. So let's say this guy has 100 million tokens and he tries to introduce a bad block by giving himself more tokens than he ought to have. But so if this is discovered by participants in the blockchain, then this guy will lose all 100 million of his tokens. So it's really no joke. So it will remove a lot of incentive for attacks such as these on the consensus mechanism. So there is also Raft. Raft is often used in enterprise blockchain. So instead of proof of stake, in which every block has its, has a leader, a Raft just appoints a central node as the leader for all transactions. So so for instance, if you have a blockchain, an internal blockchain in a bank, they don't really care. There is trust in that. You can have a central node and you can trust that node because it's operated by the bank anyway to validate transactions in good faith. And that will also save a lot of energy, because instead of a lot of miners doing the validation work and spending a lot of energy in the process, you have one node that is trusted by other nodes that will do the validation. So that's really possible, of course, in enterprise blockchain, because if you are the same enterprise, then presumably you can trust a central node to be good. So another attack that could happen on a blockchain is a partition attack. So blockchain networks operate on the internet. So to disrupt a blockchain network, you could attack the internet infrastructure, which allows the functioning of these networks. So for instance, you could target the border gateway protocol, and and by doing so, an attacker could partition the blockchain network by hindering the movement of network traffic between autonomous systems on the internet. And so nodes are kind of partitioned according to which autonomous system they're part of. So if you're on Singtel, you're stuck in a smaller partition of the blockchain network with other Singtel customers who are also on the blockchain, and so on. So there are some implications to this attack, such as you will delay the sending of validation of transactions to a particular ASN, or you could mount a 51% attack against a smaller slice of the blockchain, which would be easier to pull off, or something like that. So basically, you're partitioning the network into smaller partitions, which an example of an attack that this can enable is a delay attack. So in a delay attack, Bob sends a cryptocurrency payment to Alice, and Alice is a bad person. So Alice is a malicious merchant, and she attacks the network to delay the delivery of the block that contains Bob's payment transaction, for some time. So she doesn't let the block which validates the transaction actually reach Bob. So during that time, Alice tells Bob, hey, I didn't actually receive your payment. The payment didn't go through. And Bob checks his copy of the blockchain and says, somehow the money didn't go through to Alice. So Bob is tricked into sending a second payment to Alice, and this would give her twice the money she should have. So And then it is only after that that Bob actually realizes, oh no, I was charged twice for the same transaction. So yeah, so those things do happen. So now we go on to smart contracts. And smart contracts are interesting because they can be programmed to do whatever you want. So smart contracts are basically programs that are stored on a blockchain. And smart contracts are programmed in such a way that the terms of a contract between parties are found within the code. And very often, smart contracts are self-executing. They execute based on certain conditions or whatever that are found in the contract itself. So it is analogous to a legal contract, but it is smart in the way that it can execute itself when certain conditions are met or whatever that are found in the code. So let's say, so this is an example of an insurance company introducing an insurance policy using a smart contract. So for instance, so here, this Fizzy product is a flight delay insurance. So if you buy the insurance, you're basically signing a smart contract with EXA, and saying that if the plane is more than 2 hours late, you will be you will be reimbursed immediately. You don't have to make a claim. You'll be paid immediately. So how this goes is that you sign a smart contract with EXA, and this smart contract is coded such that your name, your wallet details, and your flight number. And if that flight, so this smart contract is connected to flight databases, which know when the flight takes off, when it's supposed to take off, and so on. So if the condition within the smart contract, such as a plane is more than 2 hours late, is met, then the smart contract will execute immediately. It will execute automatically. It will send you the insurance payout to your own wallet automatically, immediately. So once the condition is met, EXA cannot say, oh no, you don't need, will not be reimbursing you. No, that's not possible, because the smart contract will self-execute and pay you for whatever delay has happened according to the policy. And the insurance policy details are also coded within the smart contract. So that's one of the early implementations of this. I think though the service has ended because it's not very viable. So smart contracts are interesting because you can write arbitrary code. You can write any code you want and have it executed on the blockchain. So one attack that is possible against smart contracts is called the re-entrance attack. So here we have this vulnerable program called withdraw balance. So this function called withdraw balance can be called by someone who has a balance within the smart contract. So let's say, so an analogy would be that, okay, so you have an account with, say, DBS. And so when you want to withdraw your money from DBS, you can call a function called withdraw balance. Okay, so here, this function essentially allows a user to withdraw the entire balance that they have from the smart contract into their own wallet. Sorry. So here, when the function is called, the amount to withdraw is set as the user balance of this message to sender. So the sender of the message is the person who's trying to withdraw the balance. So we obtain his balance, and we send this call to the blockchain to send the amount to be withdrawn to the user who requested the withdrawal. And once there is a success, then the user balance of this withdrawal request is set to 0. So the problem with this is that there is no limit to the number of withdrawal balance you can call. So you can call it while your balance is 0. Of course, you won't get anything in return. But the interesting thing is, you can call withdrawal balance, and before the first instance of your call is completed, you call it again. So let's say you have 100 Ether in the smart contract. You want to withdraw that 100 Ether and you're a bad guy. So you want to get 200 or 300 Ether. So you call withdrawal balance, and before the execution of this withdrawal balance is complete the first time, you call it again. And so before the user balance is set to 0, you're calling it again. So when you call it again, the amount to withdraw is still 100. So the first time you execute this, you get 100 Ether. The second time you withdraw it, you get 100 Ether again. So basically, you can call it then again and again and again and again until you empty out the entire smart contract, which is bad because other people have money in the smart contract as well. So that's like, you have $1,000 in DBS, and you withdraw, let's say, $1,000 from one teller, and before that teller manages to set your balance to 0, you go to the next counter and you withdraw $1,000 again. So that's fascinating. So there was this decentralized autonomous organization. It was created in very good intentions. So basically, the people who started this DAO, as they call it, wanted to create this decentralized hedge fund. So people would put their money into this smart contract, and people would be able to vote, and decide, where should we invest this money to grow the capital of this DAO. So it's like a crowd-funded hedge fund. No, not a hedge fund, but a venture capital company. So it's a venture capital that is crowd-funded. Everyone puts their money in, they try to invest and stuff. So basically, it was attacked in 2016 because this guy found that, I can call this withdrawal balance multiple times before my balance gets deducted. So basically $60 million worth of Ether was stolen. And that was very serious. So serious that they had to do a hard fork on the Ethereum network in order to restore the balances to where they were. But so now we have Ethereum and Ethereum Classic. Ethereum Classic is basically the one that is spotted by the attacker, that in which the Ether is still there. The stolen Ether is still there. And basically, the mainstream Ethereum is the main Ethereum blockchain that most people use now. But basically, the blockchain network has split into two, and all the transactions up to the DAO hack are the same, but after the DAO hack, they are different. So blockchain networks do split up because some people can choose to say, I'll do a software update, and after this update, I'll be joining the new, I'll be updating, and some people will say, I won't update. And basically, the people who update and people who don't update, they'll essentially be in different networks after the update is complete. So so that's a hard fork. And they tried to reverse the DAO hack using a hard fork, but of course, on Ethereum Classic, essentially people who refuse to update to Ethereum, the stolen Ether is still stolen. So of course, since you have attackers prowling around to find vulnerabilities in smart contracts that they can exploit, we now have this thing called a honeypot contract. So the honeypot contract is a contract that sits in the blockchain. It appears to have a very large balance within it. Let's say one Ether. So 1 Ether is worth more than $1,000 nowadays. So let's say there's 1 Ether inside this contract, and it appears to have a weakness that will allow an attacker to withdraw all the funds without authorization. So here we have this contract called multiplicator X free. So it seems that if you call if you send in money using this multiplicate function, then it appears that if you send more money, then so this dot balance is the money already in the multiplicator X3 contract, this dot balance. And this message dot value is the money that the attacker tries to send in. So it basically tries to say that, it appears to say that if the attacker sends in more money than the balance in the smart contract itself, then the contract will transfer the total balance plus what is sent in to the attacker. So it seems that, oh, this is very easy to exploit. So let's say there is 1 Ether in the smart contract. I just have to send in 1.1 Ether and I'll get 2.1 Ether back. So that sounds like a good deal, right? So I get 1 free Ether. So the attacker may think that way. But the problem is, once the multiplicate is called and the message dot value is sent in by the attacker, this dot balance is also updated. So let's say the balance before the attacker sent in money called multiplicate was 1 Ether. Once he sends in 1.1 Ether, this dot balance becomes 2.1 Ether. So the message value can never be greater than equals to this dot balance. And so the attacker will never get their money back or any money, at all. So basically the owner of this honeypot contract gets to keep the Ether they put into the contract in the first place and any Ether that was sent in by attackers. So this is a very smart way of attacking attackers. So people tend to do that. So of course, I want to end off by saying that, cryptocurrency investments are very risky. Cryptocurrencies have no intrinsic value. The current value, market value, is sustained only by the existence of market participants who are willing to buy them using fiat currencies. And even then, you have stuff like Tether, which means that the market value may not be the true market value. It may be inflated by people printing their own US dollars, in effect. So if you don't have a sufficient grasp of how the blockchain works, how the cryptocurrency markets work, there are numerous pitfalls you can fall into. Your exchange may collapse. You may be tricked into sending double payments, or you may receive funny US dollars in exchange for a sale of your crypto assets, Tether. So the US dollars you get for selling your cryptocurrency may not be real US dollars in effect. So other attacks found elsewhere, such as phishing, scams, that happen to anywhere, even outside of cryptocurrency, can also target your cryptocurrency investments. So never invest more than you're willing to lose. Be prepared to lose your entire principal that you put into a cryptocurrency. With that, thank you very much. Any questions?
Very too short. 我冇你接佢哋呢樣嘢。Yeah.